Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming along. So this isn't my book launch, and I owe an apology to Chris and Zara because we postponed the book launch about 3 weeks ago because I was getting worried that it wasn't ready. So I refused to have the book launch, but I actually have the book. So Chris and the team, respect to them, they got everything done on time, and I just didn't think it'd happen in time, so we'll have the book launch next month, so we'll do two. I suppose just a little bit of background. Chris has already said most of it anyway. I'm born into a retail family. Unfortunately, it's not a Selfridge family, it's not Sainsbury's, etc. But my great-grandfather started a shop in 1923, which we still have in Kent on the High Street. And so it's one of those things, it's part of our family life. It's a very small shop, but it's always been around. I've always grown up knowing about retail. I started working at 14 in a paper shop in the north of England. We actually moved. And then basically did my career through I did a retail management degree. So again, everything to do with retail. I then spent 15 years in the big corporate retailers, doing various jobs in various parts of the world. And then around about 5 years ago, I thought I'll leave all this big corporate world and I'll set up my own business because, I should know about retail, hopefully. So I set up an online retailer selling shirts, but actually shirts that don't show as my patches. And the models are here now. So it's a great business which we used to sort of set up, and it was a startup business, very much, brand new business, not a lot of cash, every penny matters. And what we did with that, we said, well, how can we launch this and make this seem like a global company, and yet do it on a few £1,000s, a very few £1,000s. And it was really using social media that I first started to go, actually, this is 5 years ago when social media was starting to make a little bit of an impact. And we thought, actually, let's launch it with some big social media. So back in 2009, we launched it, and we were selling in 23 countries in 3 months. And that was more or less solely down to social media. We got this crazy video done of Boris on the Boris bags, the TFL bags. And that went viral for its stage. It didn't do millions, because back then it was still, it was a few 100,000. But it did enough just to get us seen in different places around the world. And it meant that places like Reuters, Bloomberg, the news services, or the press around the world, or Europe and America, actually saw this and went, well, this is interesting. Let's have a look at it, interviewed the founders, and then started to sort of grow from there. And then the business eventually turned to retail. It became a technology license company. So I left the business in terms of full-time. I went into helping smaller businesses launch. And again, it was smaller brands that needed to get a message out to the world. And it's, how can you do this? Can I have a 100,000 budget for marketing? No. Can I have £1,000 for marketing? No. Can I have a few £100 for marketing? No. Okay, so what do I have? I have time, and I have creative people. Great. That's all you need for social media. You need some time, and not as much as you think. And one of the big myths that we'll go through is that this does not take your life. I was just talking to the lady over there, and she said, somebody's discussing social media and Twitter and saying they spend 8 hours a day on social media. You can spend that much, but it's not very productive, and I think your eyes will go strained as well. It's about using it cleverly. And what I talk about in the book, and I won't do that bit yet, I'll talk about the first book that I launched. So in 2010, I wrote the Retail Handbook. The Retail Handbook is, as it sounds, very much, what you see is what you get. Does what it says on the tin. The Retail Handbook is all about how to run a retail shop. And so I've spent my life in it. So how do you do that? What do you do? And the funny thing was, I launched the book, and when you launch a book and you put it on Amazon, you get lots of sales, and it's very exciting. You go, hey, this is brilliant. And then about 3 months later, you my book's not selling. Nobody wants my book. And he's sort of, well, it's fine, it's just Amazon's not doing something, the publisher's not doing it. It wasn't with Chris, though. The publisher's not doing the job, You do the usual, you think, and then all of a sudden it dawned on me, I sell things, I run retail businesses, and I couldn't sell my book because it wasn't a product in my head. So it wasn't something that I would sell normally, as I would with any product or any shirt or any gadget. And as soon as I had that sort of brainwave, I thought, I need to market my book exactly the same way I market the products in the business. So I took to Twitter, and I thought, right, let's just blitz Twitter every day with a number of messages. And it took me 6 months to refine the process and probably quite a lot of annoyed followers to start off with. But I use Twitter, and I still use it to this day, with 4 tweets a day. And literally, religiously, I roll the same tweets out. There's about 100 tweets. So if anybody can do maths, which I can't, it's X number of days. It's around about every month. I just need to update it. And those tweets have been crafted in different ways. So it's not buy the book's on sale, because in retail I know that doesn't work. If I come up to you and say buy the book now, you won't buy it unless you know something about it, unless you feel comfortable with it. So the tweets talk about some information in the book. So statistics, things like retail is the biggest employer in the UK, and things about online presence, etc. There's lots of stats in there which we update every so often. That gives the type of person that you want to sell your book to the information. So they go, oh, that's quite interesting. So that person might follow you. Then I also do free download of the first chapter. So if somebody's interested, and they go, I've seen it, there is something about this book, let's have a look, let's download the first chapter. You see the first chapter, read through it, it's either for you or it's not for you. And if it's for you, you're definitely going to go and buy the book. If it's not for you, great. You might tell somebody else, but at least you've had a look at it. There's then the sales one, which says buy the book. And you have to do that. So in retail, it's a call to action. You can't just say, I have a book, it's very nice. You have to say, go buy the book from here. So there is the sales ones, but they're probably about, I think it's about 20% of the tweets or something like that, or even 10%. So most tweets are information, most tweets are free download of something useful. And because I've done that, I'm part of a business community in London, and lots of people say, well, how do you sell your book? So I started talking to people saying, well, you do this process, you do this process. And then I approached Chris around about 6 months ago to write a totally different book than this one. So I want to write a book which is really interesting. It's about the history of my family in terms of retailing and the future of retailing. But it's actually quite a long book, because for me to write a normal, sort of non-fiction book is easy, because I can write books like this. It still takes a lot of time, believe me, so it's not easy in that way. But for me to write the interesting book in terms of the family, the history, and the way I want to portray it is actually quite a complicated thing to do. And I haven't got my head around it. So because I was talking to Chris, and he was like, well, that sounds really interesting, but why don't we just do something on social media for authors? And I was like, well, it's not, I know how to do it, I've done it, but, my business is retailing and selling things. But that's what Authorcraft is about. This is not a sales pitch for Authorcraft, by the way, I just realised. But Authorcraft looks at a book as a business. He looks at this as a product. And it's like, well, I did that before I even knew Chris and Authorcraft. This is a product and it's part of my business. So for me, it felt very natural for me to write this book and talk about how it works and what the process is. And really, Chris wanted some quick sort of 5 tips. So what I did was printed up page 207 this morning, which is actually in the book, just to go through the final page. So this is it. This is the last page of the book, which is the most important page. And really where it starts, the first sort of summary, in essence, the main sort of key takeaways is content. content. It is all about the content. So what is the message you're trying to give? Why are you trying to give it? Who is it for? So understanding the content is really where the book starts. And understanding, secondly, or maybe firstly, is the customer. Who are you selling the book to? Okay, who's the book for? This book is for authors to learn how to do social media. That's why, I like my book titles. The Retail Handbook is for retailers. Social media for authors is for authors. It's great. My world is very logical and simple in that way, which is why doing the interesting book is going to be hard for me. But it's really knowing your customer and how you want to interact with them, as you would in a retail shop, as you would with your business. So with any businesses, B2B businesses, consultancies, you will have to understand what your customer wants, how they operate, etc. So understanding your customer and writing the content for them, how they speak and what they want to learn from it. The sort of second thing, the third thing, actually, because it's customer first, then content, is to use a strategy. So probably the biggest thing is that how many of you tweet randomly? Do you just write tweets and post them when you think of them? Put your hands up. Come on. I know you do, Pete. We all do. I still do now. I still ignore my own advice because we always do that. But there's no point just tweeting randomly unless it's social. Okay. So very important. I'm talking about your book, business, social media. I'm not talking about you going to the pub, going for a coffee, going on a holiday. That's when you do your tweets whenever you feel like it. This is a strategic way to look at how to market your business and your book. So the first thing really is to look at a strategy of content and a strategy of tweeting, Facebooking, etc. And the way I look at it, I start with a blog. So your blog is your biggest piece of text, probably the best way to put it. The most content you put into it, a blog, an update or an email, whatever you want to call it. But most people write a blog. I know probably most. Have you all got blogs? Do you write blogs? Yeah. Not consistently, but yeah. So most people do, and if you don't, start thinking about writing a blog. Because a blog is where you give most of your information and where people will go to. And don't worry about the time, because people go, well, I wrote a blog and nobody visited it. Well, when you learn the rest of it, you'll get visitors. But also, your blog doesn't run out of, its importance. Your blog will still be important in 6 weeks, 6 months' time, unless it's a blog about an event. It's different. But your ideas, your book, your business, the point of what your content is, will not go out of date. So you write a blog. It's a page sort of thing. So I don't know how many words that is. 300, 500 or something. I don't know. So whatever your blog normally is, write your blog. And then from that, take paragraphs of information for Facebook. So if you've got a Facebook group or Facebook page, and post that paragraph. So probably, 5, 6 lines. No more. You can do less, you can do a couple. Try and put an image with that. Facebook, we all love images, we all like to look at things. So try and post something that's visual with it. So your paragraph is part of the key information, which is from the blog. So you posted that, and you posted an image with it. And then you move to Twitter. Twitter then is the small messages, the one-liners, or even 5 words, the very small messages, which is to get people to look at Facebook or the blog. So your blog, again, is where you did the work. That's where you thought about it, that's where you worded it, that's where you put in the effort. You then take that to paragraphs for Facebook, and then to sentences, or even just a few words for Twitter. And then you share that a lot on Twitter. Now, the question people always say is, well, I haven't got any followers on Twitter. Well, I didn't have any followers to start off with. Nobody does, You don't automatically go on Twitter and get followers. It'd be nice if you did, but, if you're a celebrity, I'm sure you do, but we're not. So, to get followers on Twitter, which is another one of the secrets, is to follow people. So follow people that are in your industry, in your sort of hobby, in your sphere of influence, who would be interested in the book or would understand the book. So follow those people, share their tweets or retweet them, try and interact with them. So I know people who've got different businesses and they follow the industry leaders and have conversations on Twitter, especially in tech world, technology. I love gadgets in tech world, so, and they follow people, you know, in Silicon Valley, and they have conversations with global leaders of, you know, Microsoft, Google, etc., on Twitter. The power of doing that is immense. You know, you only need one person of, you know, that sort of level to share, to like, to interact with you, to get the traction. And so, for me, it's a case of following and interacting and engaging with the people who have the influence. And then people will start to follow you because they'll see your tweets and they'll see your blog. I mean, that's really interesting. I'm really interested in how that works. I might connect with this person. The time for me is spent in that first period. So, you know, it could take you 6 weeks, it could take you 6 months to work out the right phrasing, the right sort of keywords, etc. But once you crack that, you put it through the same sort of machine. I use Hootsuite. There's plenty of others out there. I was just reading about Social Sprout, which I love Sprouts, by the way. I'm one of those strange people that love Sprouts. So on Sunday, because I know you're all interested, on Sunday for dinner, I had roast potato, sprouts and gravy with no meat, and I enjoyed it. What am I talking about? Right, Social Sprouts. Yes, so Social Sprouts, again, is one of those, it's a new sort of sharing site. What Hootsuite, Social Sprout, TweetDeck, etc. do, the blog that you've written, the Facebook updates, the tweets that you've written, you share those on Hootsuite. So once a month, you basically automatically upload them, and they're all timed to go 3 times a day, 4 times a day, once a week, etc. So you use these, you know, software, these are the freely available software to actually get the message out there. So you're not spending 8 hours doing it. You might spend the time at the start to understand what to write, who to follow, that side of it. That does take time. And you also need to be there to interact with the community. I'm terrible at interacting with my community because I do too many different things. But I do have 2 phones, so I try and interact. So being out there, following, engaging, you do then need to interact. With technology, you can do. You know, seriously, I do have 2 phones, and I do have Twitter and Facebook and everything on it. I have Hootsuite on it. So you can actually manage your messages when you're sat on the bus. And even on the tube, when it stops at stations now, because we've got Wi-Fi, which is great. So you can actually still manage everything and keep up a presence. I love it when I'm in meetings and people say to me, why are you tweeting? It's like, I'm not on my phones, honestly, I'm not. And then you realise it's your automatic tweets that are going out there. So you're doing work when you're not doing work. That time is actually spent winning the clients, teaching people, training people, doing whatever you do, and the machine in the background is actually doing the work. So, what else should you have? There's loads. And I think really planning it all from the start again it is having a strategy. I think that for me is the key thing. Plan it out, take the time up front to actually invest in what you're putting out as content. Keywords, that was the one I was going to talk about. I'm not a memory champion, by the way, so I need to read your book. Really do. We'll do a swap. Keywords, sorry, I should have said this, because this is one of the important parts of the front of the book. Keywords are basically what do you want to be known as. So there's millions of lectures and millions of information now about keywords. Keywords, I always look at it, how would you describe your business in 2 or 3 words to somebody? And that's your keywords. It's great. From my great-grandfather's shop, he was a bacon specialist, and there's a picture of it. It says it outside the shop. Where do you get bacon? There. So that is my example of how to do keywords. You know, what is it you're about? I know there's a podiatrist over there. So definitely going to have podiatry and feet, that sort of thing in the title. That's the keywords, because it's what people are looking for. So people who want to know about retail, about podiatry, about sales, they're going to type in to Google and the other networks, feet, sales, that sort of thing. But you also, they type in more now. So before, when Google started and when social media started, you type in, one word, and search wasn't that clever. Now search is very clever. You can type in, feet, podiatry, Lewisham, and you're going to get the circle podiatry. Or, you type in 3 words and you're going to get a lot of information. Now those 3 key words are what you put in your tweets, in your Facebook updates, in your LinkedIn groups, in your blog, in your photos. So another little hint, which I teach retailers all the time. I was with a big high street retailer teaching them about this. When you put an image on the website, on your blog, don't just upload the image which says pic 012537.jpg. It's not. It's a picture of Antony, So it should say, that picture name should be Antony Welfare. Because Google looks at the back of that photo and sees what it says. If the back of that photo says the same as the top, then you get a tick. And that's the same with Twitter and the same with Facebook. And they're still behind, but they're definitely going down the route of tagging, labelling, keywording photos. And then finally, the one thing I'll end on is videos. Videos are probably the best way to be getting to people. We've got the technology now, we can listen to videos on our phones, watch videos on our phones. The bandwidth, we've got 4G, we've got fibre, we've got fast technology. So putting a video on means I don't have to read, I can actually watch quickly what your message is. 1, 2, 3 minutes, little updates. That's what it's about. Now, again, it's really highly competitive now. YouTube, billions and billions of views. It's just astronomical. If you ever see, do you know what a server farm is? Server farm? A server with your information? So imagine farms in America, which are just, as far as the eye can see, millions and millions of acres of just machines, just a big computer type machine, and that's where all your data is now. It's amazing, it's amazing. If it disappears, though, you're in trouble. We won't worry about that one. Tagging things and using videos. So tagging your videos in line with what you're tagging everything else with will help you be found on YouTube. Because if now you look on YouTube how to make a cocktail, I dread to think there's probably 1 million videos now on how to make a cocktail. But how to make a blackcurrant and orange cocktail, not sure that'd be nice, but that is more of a keyword, it's more refining it. So whatever your keywords are, think about them for your business, put them into everything you do, your photos, your videos, your tweets, your Facebook, LinkedIn, your blogs, because then people will start to see you. And whenever they search on one of the social media networks or on the internet as a whole, they're going to see your name coming up continually. And that means they'll give you a call, they'll email you, or they'll do business with you. Thank you.